Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a big box of Telemann. Oh, joy. Seriously, really joy. It's great stuff. Telemann is a very difficult composer to wrap your brain around because he was so unbelievably prolific. He was C.P.E. Bach's godfather. He was a friend of Bach and Handel and Matheson and all of those good people. He was one of the guys who tried out for the job, for Buxtehude's job in Lübeck, but ran away screaming when he realized that part of the job involved marrying Buxtehude's daughter, who I refer to as Euphrodisia Buxtehude. Actually, her name was Anna, but I think Euphrodisia Buxtehude sounds so much more poetic, don't you? I really think that we ought to do a play, actually, and I'm going to digress for a second, a play or a novel or something called Buxtehude's Daughter. It's such a great sounding title, isn't it? I mean, it's just marvelous. And we could tell the whole story from her perspective. Because Buxtehude, who was the greatest German organist in the, first few decades of the 18th century, made Lübeck into a wonderful musical capital because he was a genius in his way, but he had 3 unmarried daughters, and he was desperate to see them well situated before he died, which was really very nice of him. Now, the fact that they were the 3 ugliest women in Europe may have mitigated or militated or whatever the word is against that plan. I don't really know what they looked like. We don't know what they looked like, but they were elderly. By the time he was ready to give up the position, he was near death. He was like in his 80s. They were in their 30s and unmarried. And let's face it, in those days, the standard of beauty was somewhat different than it is today. I remember my mother taught a course in women's history at one point, and she showed me once an advertisement which sort of brought home that point. It was for a runaway wife. And, it described the woman in question. She had, no teeth and a scar down here, and she had a drooping eye and a hump and a limp. And it finished with, on the whole, a most comely and attractive woman. Because in those days, if you survived the pox and whatever else, it was, you were lucky. Let's put it that way. So I don't want to say anything bad about Buxtehude's daughter, but the deal was you had to marry her if you wanted Buxtehude's job. And Bach wouldn't take it, and Telemann wouldn't take it, and Matheson wouldn't take it. I don't think Handel was around to not take it, but apocryphally he was, because it sounds better if everybody tried it and ran away. Eventually, the job was taken by a guy named Johann Schieferdecker, and, she became Euphrodisia Buxtehude Schieferdecker, or Anna Buxtehude Schieferdecker, and Lübeck immediately ceased to be a musical center of note. and that's what happened because of the situation with Buxtehude's daughter. So Telemann was one of those. He was a major guy, and he controlled music publishing in Hamburg, and so he was just insanely prolific and published everything that he wrote, or could publish everything that he wrote. And where do you start? I did a talk about his Tafelmusik, which is an excellent place to start, actually. And you can go and have a look at that little chat on the Tafelmusik series. It's a very good way to get into Telemann. But another way to do it is to pick up this handy little 8 CD set of his complete wind concerti. That is, concerti for wind instruments and orchestra. And it's really a great series. The performances are beautiful. It's with La Stagione Frankfurt and Camerata Köln, not to be confused with Musica Antigua Köln, who also did some of these, by the way, under Michael Schneider. And this is 493 minutes and 27 seconds of music. That's a lot of Telemann. Well, it's a little bit over an hour a disc. And it's a lot of concerti. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, about 50 concerti. They range in length from, 7 to 9 minutes to 12, 13 minutes. They're typical Baroque concerti of the day. But the wonderful thing about them is that they use all kinds of wind instruments in a most colorful way and in multiple combinations. So they're consistently interesting. It's not like one of those sets of, 12 violin concertos or 12 oboe concertos. They're all different. And let me just give you an example of what you get here. Here's volume 8. All right. Volume 8, you got, concerti. You ready? 2 flutes and bassoon, trumpet and 2 oboes, 2 chalumeaux, which are clarinets, effectively, 2 bassoons, and then oboe and 2 violins, 2 horns and strings, and oboe d'amore and strings. So that's just volume 8. Volume 7, you have oboe and strings, 2 chalumeaux, those clarinet things, early clarinets, with violin in unison, 3 flutes and bassoon, 2 flutes and bassoon, pardon me, a recorder, a bassoon and strings, 2 more chalumeaux, and a corno di caccia, hunting horn. And volume 6, this is the last one I'm going to do, but you'll get the picture, right? You get transverse flute and strings, 2 flutes and bassoon, oboe, and 2 oboes, bassoon and strings, flute and strings, 2 recorders and strings, and 2 horns and strings. So you can see, it's a wonderful, these are programmed so as to give you maximum variety. It's a wonderful assortment of stuff. These are all available separately, by the way, so you can get them one at a time, one volume at a time, although these days knowing that volume 6 will still be around by the time you get to it is a bit of a crapshoot, I have to admit, but it doesn't make any difference. It really doesn't. It's charming, well-written, colorful, tuneful, decent Baroque orchestral music. They're as good as Vivaldi's. They're as good as Bach's, most of them. Bach's, let's not say his biggest concerti, but, there's no, D minor harpsichord concerto in this pile. They're more like Vivaldi in the Italian school. But they are lovely, and there's a lot of them. And you can go as far as you like and sample and hear Telemann's own style. He did have one. Damned if I could describe it, but he had one. I guarantee you he had one. Handel plagiarized from him fairly regularly, and if it was good enough for Handel to plagiarize from, it's good enough for us to listen to. So keep on listening, friends. Have a shot at some of these Telemann wind concerti. You won't be sorry. You really won't. They're on CPO. They're first rate. The recordings are excellent. And the music is just fun to discover. It really, really is. So take care, and thank you so much for joining me.